There are two types of mediating activity: sign-mediated activity and tool-mediated activity. It's not a dichotomy, of course, because you can have activity that is both sign-mediated and tool-mediated. Like if I drive around in a fancy sports car, it's a tool because it's getting me from A to B, and it's also a sign of how flash and prosperous I am. And also, the things we use, the signs and tools, that's not a dichotomy either, because something can be both a tool and a sign, but there's no third, right? The distinction between a tool and a sign is a functional distinction. The tool acts on the material world and the sign acts on the mind, your own or somebody else's. So the sign operates in perception, in understanding the meaning of something, and it acts in communication, and it becomes involved in thinking. Okay, now, I said that the distinction is a functional distinction, and it's a binary one. The artifact that you're using in the activity either acts on the mind or on the material world, and there's no third. Now, people don't like binaries. Now, if by that I mean, if by consciousness I mean your consciousness, my consciousness, Donald Trump's consciousness, Joe Smith's consciousness, all the consciousness in the world, and I say that that's something radically different than the material world, that's a dichotomy, and that's wrong, and there's no science on that. But the proper way to say it is that there's a categorical difference between my consciousness and the world outside my consciousness, which is the material world. And I say that as the active person speaking. But if I look at you, if I observe you, then your consciousness is a part of the material world. I can watch, I know something about your background, maybe, your past history, and I can observe your actions and listen to your speech, and I can figure out what you're thinking. But just the same way as I can figure out who broke who spilt the milk, right? And I'll look at the cat and think it's probably him, right? You can figure out things by observing them. Okay, but see, that's not the end of the story, because if we're talking about activity, sign-mediated activity and tool-mediated activity, particularly sign-mediated activity, is used for communication. And when I'm communicating with you, that's not the same as observing you. In communicating with you or in acting with you, in any sense at all, I'm treating you as an active person, an active agent. And that's not the same as treating someone as simply part of nature, part of the material world. I presume, rightly so, that your actions are sign-mediated actions, that you use words with meaning. It's not just if someone hit you on the hand and you said, ouch, that your words have meaning. So consequently, there's the dichotomy between my consciousness and the world outside my consciousness extends to my partner in communication as well. I'm not just observing them, I'm communicating with them. So the distinction between sign-mediated activity and tool-mediated activity is deeper than that. I don't, if I'm communicating with you, then I understand, I assume I have your attention and you're attending to me. So I interpret what you say as sign-mediated activity, right? So, and I assume that you're acting on my mind. So the distinction between mind and the matter being the rest of the world, is categorical also in respect to another person with whom you are actively communicating. Now, the failure to recognize the categorical distinction between your own consciousness and the world beyond your consciousness, the material world, is literally insanity. If you hear voices and see ghosts and you think they're real, not just figments of your imagination, then you are literally insane, right? So recognizing the distinction between what something in your consciousness and something in the world is absolutely essential. It's a categorical difference that constitutes sanity. So that, at the same time, I don't mean that consciousness in general is something categorically different than matter. No, it isn't. It's a function of matter, and you can observe it and analyze people's what's going on in the world in terms of the consciousness of people acting in the same way you would any process that requires some investigation to understand it. But the distinction, the categorical distinction also covers your relationship, your active relationship with someone that you are communicating with or acting together with. You know? So it's not only my mind, but also the partner's mind, the person with whom you're interacting, that you do take account of that they have a mind and that they're using their speech acts as a sign to you. Okay, in addition to that, there's the question of what kinds of things can be signs and tools. Or put it differently, how is culture conveyed down history and across the world? And that's not really explained very well by saying it's all signs and tools. It is all signs and tools, or sign tools. That's true. But I think in what we say about culture, it's better if we explain a little bit more than that. But apart from signs, by signs I mean the written word, maps, diagrams, all sorts of things in the built environment, statues, very tall buildings. These are all signs. In addition to that, signs in that original sense also include speech. And it isn't obvious to someone that isn't already educated in this that speech counts as a sign. And in the development of the species and the development of the individual person and the development of a culture, speech plays a special role, different from the written word. Right? They have different characteristics and they differ developmentally. So I would add to the list of vehicles of culture the speech, as well as tools and signs. But there are also other things. That the hand is both a sign and a tool. I can use it to pick something up, therefore it's a tool, and I can wave to you, therefore it's a sign. And the same goes in fact for my whole body. And the body is a product of human labor. The human species made themselves in the course of evolution by the things we did, the things we ate, and so on. And an individual person in the course of their life, their personal development, makes themselves. If you're big and strong and muscly, it's probably because you did a lot of exercise and so on and so forth. How you carry yourself, that's your product. And it's both a tool and a sign. It's a signal the kind of person you are by the body you have, as well as the signs you carry in terms of your clothes, right? Should be included under signs. And there's also this is a fifth element that I think should be included, and that's the land, or what the indigenous people call country. The land is a human product. There's no such thing as wild country anywhere in the world, except maybe Antarctica, right? But the entire globe is the product of human labor, both where it's planted with crops and even in wild forests are like they are because of human labor. And if for Indigenous people that live in very close connection to the land, it's more than just that. Their mythology, their kinship relationships, and all of their creation stories and so on, the ethics are all tied up with the land. So the land has to be recognized also as a tool and a sign. Obviously, it's a tool. It's where we get our living. Everything we have comes out of the land originally. And it's also a sign in the sense that every feature in the landscape and in the sky and in the rivers and oceans has meaning for us. Okay, so we started off with a binary distinction between tools and signs, which covers, in a sense, all the ways that meaning and culture and human activity is mediated. But we have to realize that tools and signs covers a larger group of entities than is immediately obvious, including the human body and the landscape as well as speech. Okay, thank you.